My first action to make my iPad holder is to put the zipper in the lining. Now I cut my lining piece 19.5 inches long, and my zipper is going to go in this part right here, and then down here I left this little part here because I'm going to do it like a self-binding with the lining fabric over the outer fabric to make this part of the pouch. That way I don't have to cut a separate piece of binding for that. So zipper is the first thing here that we'll be doing, putting it into one side of the case lining like that. Putting my zipper in. And I took my 9-inch zipper and I laid it on the edge of the lining fabric. I want a little bit of the tape to be extended here, and down here I'm going to cut this off later on. Okay. Now my zipper teeth are down because after I sew this, it'll be back. We'll be folding this back, and then they're going to be up. And I also am going to open this up so that I don't have to worry about sewing around that slider and making a little bump in my seam line. So here I go, sewing very easily, about 1/4 of an inch from the teeth. I want the fabric to be sort of away from the teeth because I don't want it to the fabric to get caught in the teeth when I'm using it. So I'm going to be kind of careful about that, and it's easy to do that with your zipper foot. So there's one side, and then I'm going to fold this back, and I'm going to top stitch across this. I'll have to go from this side so that I got my needle on the right side here. So I'm just going to top stitch this down so that this fabric stays away from my zipper teeth. You could press this before you sew it, and it might make it a little bit easier. So there's my one side of my zipper. For any of you who have seen any of my tutorials on putting a zipper in a tote bag, this is really almost the same technique for doing it. So now I need to get my other piece of fabric and sew it on this side. Now I'm going to sew the other side of the zipper to the lining piece that's going to be for the flap. I want to make sure that my pieces line up, so I've got the flap piece underneath and the larger piece up above here, and I've started sewing it a little bit so that I just want to make sure that I've got this so that it'll turn out even. So I'm just going to sew this on, and when I get up to this slider, I'm hoping I can sew around it without having to move it. Not too bad. Okay, so then here we go. It's finished, and now I'm going to top stitch along this edge here. I can just start from this side and just top stitch it down. And there we go. Ready to attach it to the body of the case. Before I'm completely finished with my lining, there's a couple of things that I want to do. I have these two little pieces of lining fabric that I'm going to put on either end of my zipper to make stops. So this will hold the fabric together up here as I'm sewing it onto the body of the thing, and since I'm going to cut off this zipper down here, I'm just going to sew across this and then flip it down and make it be a stop for that end of the zipper so that it won't go off the track. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of Velcro. This is the pile side of the Velcro. And I'm going to sew it about here on my flap piece, because this will be where it's going to attach to the other side, which is on the right side of the iPad holder, to close it. So those two things need to be done. I'm going to go ahead and sew this stop across the zipper, and I just let it be a raw edge. This is batik, so it won't fray, and it's such a small little thing, I'm not worried about it fraying. And so I sewed it like that, and then I'm just going to lay this back like this, iron it back, and catch it and close, so real close to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch seam. And now I can cut my zipper off without worrying that it's going to get off the track. And then I'm going to sew on the other end. I'm going to sew this zipper tape closed with my little stop piece underneath it. So I'm going to lay this underneath, and I'm going to pinch these edges close, really close, and sew across there so that they won't come apart when I'm trying to sew the lining piece to the body of the, it's tricky, it's wanting to come loose. So sew it real close to the edge, and just to keep it in place is basically what that's for. And so now I feel like my zipper is secure now. And then I'm going to sew my Velcro down here, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the end of the flap, and center it. And I'm using the pile side of the Velcro here. I found one of them that I did. I used a zigzag stitch, and it kind of puckered my fabric. Unless it's doubled, you might have a problem with that, and we don't want to do that. So just sewing it in place, and then we'll be finished with the lining and ready to work on the front and attaching the lining to the front of it to work on the finishing of it. Or the extra piece that I cut off from my width of fabric, and I'm just going to lay this underneath like this, matching up my ends, and then I'm going to sew across where my zipper, upper zipper part is, to attach the back of the pocket to the front. And then when I open it up, sew around all the edges here, I'll have a good pocket for my accessories. See, it's caught on there. I gotta make sure I get past that. And let's see if that works. Nope, still caught. These zipper sliders are a pain in the neck sometimes. Okay, now if I open this up, you see that it's a pocket.